I don't understand why, but our district never seems to line up what we're reading with what we're writing about.
Yeah.
Like if I'm reading a book about, for example, we changed all the books this year, but we kept the standards the same. But if I'm reading about Curious George
Mm-hmm.
and he gets into trouble at the museum, why am I writing about the time I learned how to ride a bike?
Yeah.
I should be writing something along the lines of, well, what makes me curious, or I got into mischief once, something that makes sense with what they're reading.
Yeah. If you went to a museum, what would you
Right.
be interested in? That kind of thing.
Exactly. Or what kind of
Exactly.
museums have you been to? Just tying it together. Otherwise, it's like such an abrupt stop in the instruction to then
Yeah.
start over all. They were having us read two separate books. Read one book for reading and then one book for writing, which I don't get me wrong, I love to read.
Yeah.
But I don't see the congruency, and I feel like it doesn't make sense to not have one large flowing language arts block with
It's
broken up time,
yeah.
obviously, because the kids need things chunked, but
It's almost
it
like
just didn't make sense.
the people that are making the focus on the writing curriculum and the reading curriculum are two different.
There was no
Like
conversations between them
there's no like,
whatsoever.
hey, what are you
Yes.
what are you teaching from there? Because
Yes.
and teachers I've talked to, we all kind of are on the same page. It's so much more fluid to just go right into, okay, now
Right.
we've read Curious George, let's go into the museum part. It's
Yes.
already in their head. You're not having to totally,
Exactly.
and you're saving so much time.
Right. And so that's kind of what we've done this year is
Hmm.
we really focus. We started it last year, but we really focused this year on picking books that kids are more interested in,
Yeah.
that we could tie, because you can really tie any standard to any book.
Yes. Yeah.
And if the story, we read one book that was like, I like to paint, I like to write, I like to, and I'm like, that's so boring for these kids. They don't want to sit there, and it just didn't make sense. They want a story, because especially my class this year, they absolutely love listening to a book.
Yeah.
They could sit and listen to a book all day long, which is wonderful.
Hmm.
So I wanted to make sure we really foster that with giving them books they're actually interested in. So my team focused on that this year, was finding books that are relatable to kids these days and what they're interested in, to tie it into our writing, which made them want to write.
Absolutely. Like I remember
Which
when
is a
we
struggle.
yeah, that well, I do want to ask you about
Oh,
writing too, but it's interesting finding the books that really click with them. And that's one thing that
yes.
I think a lot of us do is I mean, let's be honest, some of the books that are chosen are a little dry. They might
A
have the
little
Newbery,
bit
the Caldecott, they might have
dry
all
for
these
me.
awards, but I don't want to hear about Blue Lou's saxophone on at
Yes.
8th Street. I don't want to hear
Yes.
about mailing May to the Himalayas. I want to read.
Yeah.
The kids want to read about the radioactive underpants.
Correct.
They want to read about those things. And
And
like you
reading
said,
is reading.
exactly. There's a character, there's a plot, there's a setting,
Yep.
there's all kinds of stuff like that. Switching gears to writing, because I think
Yes.
we're both on the same page, because you're kind of where they're beginning this whole thing, and then by the
Yes.
time they get to like the third, fourth, and fifth
I was gonna
grade,
say the expectations for the upper grades.
yeah,
I
it's
remember.
what are some of your biggest challenges and frustrations, but also like where do you see some opportunity with writing, especially at that lower grade?
So, what I find the biggest obstacle and struggle is that it's hard for them. It is
Hmm.
not something that comes natural. It is not reading. Reading and writing are, well, yes, they work together. They're two very separate things.
Yeah,
You can be an excellent reader and still struggle with writing, because you have to come up with the ideas on your own and you have to then think about the spelling, and spelling is very hard. Now,
exactly.
in first grade, it's all phonetic spelling.
Hmm.
If they are phonetically spelling, that is what they is a look for. And that's hard for parents to understand because they want to correct words.
Yeah.
Now, as the year goes on and the more we look at high frequency words, we want them using those high frequency words correctly. But if it's a word like science that they're not introduced to, we want to hear them do I,
Ends.
ends. Like we want to hear that. Um, so that's a struggle because they're hard on themselves. It's incredible how hard a 6-year-old can be on themselves. And,
Hmm.
oh, I'm not good at this, or I'm never going to get it, that type of thing. So, one of my favorite activities, um, I actually got it from Teachers Per Teachers, but it is an open ended
Huge.
resource. It's called Transformation Station. And it's all of these different writing prompts. I think there's like 100. I honestly think there's one for every day if you printed them all out.
Cool.
And it starts them off with a picture. It could be a line or just a triangle or an X or a box, something. They turn it into a creation. So they're drawing the picture first, which normally they're not allowed to do. Normally we make them write first and then draw their picture after. So with these, they get to draw their creation first, and then they have to write about it. They can write a story about it, or they can just describe it. And I found that that's what makes even my most hesitant writers willing to at least produce a sentence.
Yeah, it's engaging them creatively right off the bat. Yeah,
exactly. So they get to, and everyone's is different. The first time we did it, because they were a little hesitant at first, because again, writing, they're always, the first one I did, I think I gave them an upside down triangle, and I challenged them, and I said, don't make it an ice cream cone. I said, because I think all of you are going to want to make it an ice cream cone, make it something different. And then we went around and we shared what we made, and not one kid made the same thing.
Oh,
which
cool.
They thought was the coolest. They were like, whoa, we all made something different. So that I feel like was like a light bulb. And I was like, okay, this is really, I'm definitely going to use this with these kids. And it became their independent writing station. And we've done one almost every week.
See, that's really cool. And I really think there is something to engaging the kids creatively first in something that they do enjoy. Because I used to have this one kid, bless his heart, he would go boneless anytime we had to do writing. You know what I mean? By boneless, would like, all right, it's time for us to do writing. And he would, like that.
Absolutely.
But like reversing that, like first by saying, like, okay, like we're going to draw and then we're going to write about what you drew. Like he's focused on the drawing part.
Yes,
and
it's already in it.
It's getting that mojo going. Well, now he's committed to it. And now I'm simply like, okay, now explain to me what you drew.
Right.
And he starts to talk. I say, no. Explain what you do.
And it gives them more ownership versus me giving them a writing prompt about, well, tell me what your favorite book is, or tell me what your favorite movie is, or write about a time you went to the zoo. Not every kid's gone to the zoo. Yeah. Not every kid has a favorite book because they don't like to read or something like that. So it gives them more ownership. Another thing I like to use for writing, these funny picture prompts.
Yes.
And they are fantastic because there's, again, so many of them. There's some that come with words that you can use. I don't like to use those because the kids can't read the words. It's like rhinoceros and
triceratops
and I'm like, they can spell that. They can try to spell on their own. They could say dino for all I care, as long as they're writing. And they're funny little animals doing silly things. It's almost like a meme, but then they have to write about it. So they love those too. So those have been my top 2 go-tos for independent writing when I do reading groups.
And see, that's brilliant because that ties into they're looking at memes all day long outside. Yes. They're seeing that kind of stuff. Catch full episodes of the Educators podcast every Thursday at 4 p.m. Real educators with the real issues in education. Thank you so much for watching. And of course, take care of yourself. Jeans passes. Anyone who likes, shares, and comments on this video. Have a great week.